Hello, everybody, and welcome to Keeping Runners on the Road. My name is Dr. Cameron Garber, and I am here with Mark and Melody here from Body Smart. So we are the team of therapists here at Body Smart that our whole goal with everything that we're trying to do is to keep runners on the road. We want to make sure that you stay fit, healthy, and able to stay on the road. And so we are talking about several different topics this next little bit. And what we wanted to hit today was a really critical topic called the female athlete triad. It's a concept about women's health with running that really is an important thing to understand so that you make sure that you don't lead towards injury. So Mark, why don't you introduce us to a little bit more about what the female athlete triad is?
Triads.
Yeah.
Well, we know it's three things.
No,
crazy.
Triad.
Triad 3. So it comprises three things. So the first is having low energy availability, right? So typically decreased calorie intake. The second is a disrupted menstrual cycle. And the third is lower bone density. The thing before we dive into any of those issues is that understand that each of those lie on a spectrum. It's not an either all or none. And having any one of those individually can be a concern. It doesn't have to have you have all three to be a concern as an athlete. And so they're all things to look at in terms of how are you feeding yourself, how are you exercising, how are you handling all the different loads that are placed on you as an athlete, mentally and physically.
Right, and they're really all important in terms of how they lead toward injury. Like each has a component towards leading toward injury and problems in your running. Obviously, if we have a low calorie availability, that's going to lead to problems with energy, but really it's repair and recovery. We can't build up our bone density or tendon, ligament, and other tissue quality of health if we're not getting enough calories. So not only are we going to perform poorly, but our risk of injury is really high. If our bone mineral density is low, it's often because we're not getting enough calories plus the repeated pounding, but our risk of injury is going to be really high with that increased bone mineral density. And if women aren't having menstrual cycles, that leads to decreased bone mineral density as well as a host of other problems. There's kind of myriad other problems that come out of that. And so really critical that all of those components then are part of a healthy runner, that you're having a regular menstrual cycle, that you're getting enough calories, and that your bone mineral density is high enough that your risk for injury is low. So here two guys are talking about that, when really this should be more Melody's subject because she understands more the kind of how that plays into everyday decisions that you have to make. And so tell us a little bit more from the female perspective, like why those things are important, but also like how hard that is to balance all of that out.
There's a lot to balance as a female, and I think there's a lot of pressure on females from society and just all around us to look a certain way and to perform a certain way, not only as an athlete, but just like as a woman. There's a lot of pressure to, be a stay-at-home mom. And we're talking like all women, like old, young, like a lot of pressure to be a stay-at-home mom, but then to also work and also be a good athlete. And there's just a lot on us. So it's important that we just slow down and we're realistic with ourselves. And we just think about like what's important to me, how much can I handle, and not let the pressures of society and the pressures from the people around us get to us and get inside of our head. And a lot of this like feeling like we have to look a certain way, a lot of it comes from media and other athletes, and like I'm thinking of Instagram right now. Like, honestly, I scroll Instagram and sometimes I get depressed because I'm like, dang, I will never look like that.
Right. No, that's a hard thing to see people that are, supposed to be so healthy or so fit or so whatever. And I think we have to remind ourselves all the time that fit doesn't necessarily mean healthy. You can be quite fit and doesn't necessarily mean that you're healthy, and your risks to your health are actually higher when you have a lower body fat percentage than if you're of kind of slightly overweight or not quite obese. At that level, the health risks start to climb again. But being kind of pleasantly plump is actually less risk than having a low BMI. And so that's one of the things with with the female athlete triad and stuff like that, that your risk starts to really increase for problems with the female athlete triad when you're at a BMI of less than 19. And so being thin isn't necessarily always a good thing.
No, and here's the thing. This lady that you see on Instagram who has the perfect body, you have no idea what's going on behind the camera, right?
Right.
You don't know how many meals she skipped to look that way. You don't know like how much time and planning and effort goes into planning every single meal and every single workout. And maybe she has time to work out 5 hours a day. And that just for most people is completely unrealistic.
Right.
And is it worth it? What was that quote that you showed us the other day about that 10 pounds is like
Yeah.
the fun
that
you
was
had with your
amazing.
family
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
Right. Those are all the things that you love to do and part of who you are. That extra 10 pounds we carry is sometimes the 10 pounds that we've kind of earned by living our life, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's you enjoying your life, and that's okay as long as you're healthy and you can do all the things you love to do. That extra 10 pounds, that kind of miracle coating that we can't seem to get rid of, may not be a bad thing.
No, and here's the thing. This is what got me past my body image is nobody cares. Nobody cares what you look like. You're the only one who cares what you look like.
So many ways, that's so true.
Right?
Like, oh, yeah. Yeah,
so the
it
trick
really
is to
true.
just be able to look at yourself in the mirror and say, like, I love me and I love my body because nobody else cares.
So my boys were actually talking about something the other day, and one of them brought up this funny cartoon my dad has hanging in the wall of his gym. So in my dad's gym, he has several like cartoons that he's snipped out from like Gary Larson or some of the other funny cartoonists. And one of them is the way women see themselves at the gym, and it shows a woman at the gym looking in the mirror, and she looks gorgeous, but the picture in the mirror that she's looking at looks, fat and flabby and whatever. And then the way men see themselves at the gym, and it's this guy with a big, like beer belly and love handles and everything. And he looks in the mirror and sees like just this muscle-bound guy, and it's so funny.
So true.
There's some truth to that. It's like, I did 10 push-ups today. Look how cut I am now. Like, and women see the exact opposite. It's like, I've done 300 sit-ups over this last day and a half, and I am a mess. And I think that's part of it is we expect change to happen so rapidly, when change doesn't really happen rapidly. So doing extreme things, where we're cutting out a lot of calories from our diet, or where we're running really hard, things that lead to the female athlete triad of, decreased calorie availability and overtraining so that we're putting too much stress on our bones. Those come from this mentality of, I've got to get it done today. I've got to become fit today, rather than this kind of long-term outlook of, if I continue to do all of the good, healthy things that lead toward fitness, that time is going to be my friend in making those changes over time. Whereas when we try to get it all done today, we have to see changes on the scale on a day-to-day basis. We have to do extreme things that lead toward problems. Mm-hmm. And so that's not a healthy way to create lifestyle change, and it's not a healthy way to live long-term either. And so those types of changes, those types of lifestyle patterns really lead to illness and injury and problems, and is an unhealthy way to think about health and fitness.
Yeah. And so I think that's where it's just good to kind of take a look at what you're doing and maybe challenge the reasons why you're doing them, or at least take that apart, right? Take some time to reflect. Because I think when we get into those mental states of like, I've got to do this, or I've got to be this way, or I've got to look like that, then it really is super difficult to take a step back from that, right?
Yeah.
And so, again, taking time ourselves, but I think that's why it's also super helpful to have friends and coaches and other people that can keep us accountable and check in on those behaviors.
Yeah.
Because they're often much easier to see from the outside than from the inside out. And so I think just being aware of that. Some of the ways that this shows up for people, right, is, drop in performance, maybe more mental fatigue, just feeling tired, getting sick more often, right? Increased risk of stress-related injuries, right? Stress fractures, things like that. Like, it's going to start showing up, which is, not a great thing. But the nice thing is before it gets really bad, we can notice some of those signs and we can stop it early in its tracks.
Yeah.
And change those behaviors now. And I love that I say we, because this is, again, the female athlete triad, right?
Yeah.
But
Mark has never had a menstrual cycle. So.
Never.
Promise.
Good. Promise.
But you brought up something really important, Mark, along the lines of having some kind of accountability partner or somebody that can give you a third-party perspective. I think really is important, because just like that cartoon where we see ourselves differently, right, in kind of through funny goggles, having somebody else be able to say objectively, like, actually you may need to lose some weight, or you're fine, you don't need to lose any weight, you're totally fine. Make sure it's somebody that has a healthy perspective on life. But I think it is important to have a quality accountability partner, somebody that can help boost you up when you are feeling like the winter pounds have packed on and you're not feeling very good about yourself. I think that can be helpful to have somebody in your corner, in your camp, that can help kind of talk you off that ledge. But I think it's also important to have somebody that if you are kind of sliding in the wrong direction, that can encourage you to make those healthy steps again and get you back on track. Yeah.
Well, what I think it all boils down to is how do you feel, right? Like, can you do the things that are important to you? Can you perform the way you want to perform?
Yeah.
If so, then it doesn't matter how you look.
Yeah.
As long as you can do what you want to do.
It's true. Especially in a perfect world. Unfortunately, that we do have those pressures and we do have those things. And so it would be nice, I guess, if everyone could accept that, because in all reality, it doesn't really matter. As long as you're healthy and you can do all the things you love to do, that's the most important factor. So how would you say, like, what's a good way that you've found to switch that mindset? Because it sounds like you've done a good job over the last little bit. I know you kind of, when you were doing some of your training recently, you kind of got caught up into that, like, I'm looking good and feeling good and all those things. And so it's like you kind of get caught up into that world. So what have you done to kind of shift that mindset, would you say?
Well, I'll start by saying I'm not perfect. Like, I still fall into that. I still look at pictures on Instagram and think, oh man, what's wrong with me?
It's totally a continuum of one day I've got the right mindset and the next day I may be totally off.
100%. Yeah. And you're right. I did really get caught up in that when I was training for my big race this year. Yeah. And I also have been trying to switch over to plant-based diet, which it's been really fun, but also really tricky. I've cut a lot of things out. And I did end up losing a lot of weight, and I was really excited. I was like, man, like, I'm really skinny. But then I realized that there was, like, it was a borderline problem because I was standing on the scale every single day. And I started to obsess over it. And I actually stopped lifting weights as much because I was scared of getting bulky.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't know, when I just started to see these patterns of, like, not eating as much and getting on the scale and not taking very good care of myself. And I just thought, like, I need to change this. This is an issue. And what really made me change my mindset was when I think about, like, my athletes or my family or my friends watching me as an example. I don't want anyone else to make the decisions that I was making. So I want to make a mindset for the people around me and for the people that I train.
If you were coaching you, what advice would you give yourself? Right?
Exactly.
Like,
And it really is just a matter of, like, rewiring your thoughts. Like, when you have a thought of I shouldn't eat that, just tell yourself, actually, I should eat that. There's nothing wrong with eating that. And I had someone that I admire tell me that there's no such thing as good food and bad food. It's just food. It's just fuel. Yeah. So to just kind of rewire your thinking and
I like that.
Yeah, tell yourself that, you know, it actually is good to eat, and it is good for females to lift weights. Right. So
good. It's so important.
So important.
Yeah. And so making sure that you keep those balances and you keep those mental checks. And like you said, again, you had somebody that you really respected that was able to tell you, hey, you do need to eat more. You do need to, like, fuel your body right. Somebody related that to like, if you owned a Ferrari, how would you treat that Ferrari? Right? You're not going to fill it full of, diesel gasoline instead, or you're not going to, so you want to fuel it right. You want to, and not, not the good food, bad food. I'm just saying, like, you're not, the better you treat it, the better it's going to perform. Keep it washed. Don't let the salt build up on it. Don't, all those things, like, take care of it. And same thing with our body. The more we take care of ourselves, the better we're going to perform and the better we're going to feel and all those things. But stressing about the little things often will lead us to kind of that space where we're shifting towards doing things not to be more healthy, but to be more fit. And in the end, that seems to always backfire. Mm-hmm. And you watch people that you may admire now, and you've probably seen it throughout your life. Somebody that, used to be really fit a few years ago on Instagram or whatever, and now you see them, and they had a job change, or their kids hit junior high or high school, or they had a kid, or things like that. And all of a sudden, their previously amazing shape that they were in is gone. And so we often get that where we have a lifestyle shift, and that's okay. That's a normal part of life. But you can't sustain sometimes that incredibly fit lifestyle forever. And so making it more moderately fit but really healthy, I think, is more important. Really focusing on health is more important. So
for sure.
That is kind of, we didn't dive into the science behind the female athlete triad too much today because I think it's a little bit overkill. I think we understand inherently how those different things could be bad. If our bone mineral density is low and we're getting fractures and other things like that, or we're going to develop osteoporosis later in life, it makes a lot of sense. The amenorrhea, so not having a regular period, that causes a lot of other problems, including bone mineral density problems. But it throws off all of the hormones. So mood, hunger, all kinds of things become affected by that big problem and leads toward kind of that same pattern of not getting enough calories and all those other things. But the main thing is eat enough food. And it is a tricky subject. It's a hard thing for everyone to figure out. And we have to all do that somewhat individually and on our own. We try to help people. When we do metabolic tests, one of the big messages I tell people is you should not eat fewer than this amount of calories. So I'm always trying to encourage people to eat more, and it freaks people out sometimes, especially if they're trying to lose weight. They're like, what do you mean? That's like so many more calories than, this app tells me I should eat. And it's like, yeah, but how have you done on that app? Like you lost weight initially and now you feel like crap and you haven't lost weight for, the last 4 or 5 months. Let's try to increase your calories, get you moving more, and get you on a healthier pattern. And when your body feels like it's not under so much stress and pressure to lose weight, all of a sudden you can get into a healthier frame and frame of mind, as well as your body's kind of natural tendency to let go of the weight is better. And if you are already of low body weight, it allows your body to be healthy if you're getting enough calories so that it can rebuild, refuel, and be ready for that next run. Because we want you to be able to perform. And so fueling your body sufficiently is so critical.
Yeah. One last thing that I want to say is, and for some of these things, it can be those simple changes, right? It can be a change in diet, or, maybe, you have some outside friends, coaches, or whatever help. Sometimes these are more serious disorders, right? They involve disordered eating. And that's where it's totally okay, and it's important to take a multidisciplinary approach. Mm-hmm. Part of the difficulty that we talked about, right, is this social media, right? All this pressure and the stigma around getting help or admitting that we need help, right?
Absolutely.
I think that's a huge difficulty.
Oh. Yeah.
And so sometimes it's going to take, I need to go to medical health counseling, right? Go to a dietitian, have someone look at my diet and help me with this. It might include mental health counseling, right? To kind of deal with some of those disordered or, maladaptive thoughts. And again, that's okay. We break a bone, we go get the fracture set, right? We seek out help for so many other, disorders and things that we have. But when it comes to how we feel about ourselves, our mental health, that can often take a hit, or we just kind of shove it under the table. But that's hugely important in how we perform and show up in athletic performance, but just in our lives and in our relationships. And so definitely we encourage you, if those are some things that you're facing, to please seek out those individuals, because as part of being part of the health field, right? Like, we care about you, we care about your health, and health is comprised of so many different factors, right? Yeah. It's not just, your muscle strength or your bone health. Right. It's your nutritional health, it's your emotional health, it's your relational health. And all those things are important and also play into, again, how you show up, how you perform in the world. And so I think that's an important part, that it's not always an easy fix. Sometimes it takes a little bit more time to develop those healthy patterns. But it is possible to develop those, and the help is for sure out there.
Right. I'm so glad you brought that up, because that, I think we'd be like mistaken if we didn't bring that up, that getting help, if you feel like you're in that place, or somebody is telling you that you're in that place and you don't believe them, go get some help. And that's okay, and it's a good thing. People feel like they have to tough it out, or that, I just need to be mentally tougher or whatever. Yeah, like you said, you break your femur and nobody's like, you should just tough that out. Why are you being so mentally weak with your broken femur? Like, just tough that out. We get it when somebody breaks their femur. When you have mental health issues, it's the same idea. It's not that you're broken, it's that things maybe aren't working quite correctly in your body chemistry or whatever, or just even your thinking patterns aren't quite right. And that's just as real as a broken femur. And so getting some help to mend those thought patterns is really no different than getting some help to mend that broken femur. And so getting the help that we need, it's just finding the right kind of fit for you of what's going to work. And I love it. I think that's what we're all about here at Body Smart, is whatever it takes to keep you healthy and on the road. Like you said, health is so multifactorial. Let's make sure you get the help you need. So if you have any questions about anything along these lines, we would love to answer them for you. Hopefully this was helpful in understanding a little bit more about not just what the female athlete triad is, but some of the implications of that. Thanks so much for joining us. Make sure to like, subscribe, follow, all that good stuff, so that you can get the rest of the videos in our Keeping Runners on the Road series. We look forward to seeing you on the next video.